I'm Joel Mall from Virginia Commonwealth University. First of all, I'd like to personally thank Bernie and Harsh for asking me to be here to speak a little bit about LGBT recruitment, and professionally thank them as well, because I think this is really an important thing. It's been alluded to already that a lot of times the focus on diversity and inclusion tends to do with ethnicity and gender and things which are incredibly important, but it's also very important, and I think it's a very subtle thing, to not exclude other types of underrepresented people in medicine. So, the hard thing with LGBT is sometimes it's hard to know if they're underrepresented because it's hard always to get an accurate count. What we do know is if you look at the AAMC data, this is from self-reported sexual orientation, sexual identity, we see, maybe 7 to 8% of our medical students are identifying themselves as LGBT. What you may or may not know is a lot of those medical students who feel comfortable in a medical school and an academic environment being who they are, then when they come to your residency program, when they come to apply to your faculty, go quickly back in the closet. And especially if they see and sense things that are not comfortable or not reaffirming. When you think about it, and again, how do we know they're underrepresented? We have so little data in this group because people have concerns about even taking a survey. Is somebody going to track me down? Is this going to affect my job? There's no discrimination in protection in 30 of the 50 states in the United States for being LGBT. So, you can be fired for being LGBT, including in the state or Commonwealth where I practice. I know the university has different policies, so I don't fear that, but nonetheless, there are people who, if that's not expressly stated, if that's not expressly reassured, and when it comes to those type of things, again, it's hard to know who those people are. We do know in a study in California that if you're pre-professional, you're much more likely to be pre-professional for medicine or law or anything if you're LGBT, statistically significant. We also know that people who go into medicine that are LGBT are more likely to choose primary care specialties, very much less likely to choose surgical specialties, even especially like emergency medicine. We have some unpublished data that in a survey that I did in 2015 that hopefully will be published shortly, but it shows about a spectrum that was just a representative sample of emergency medicine residents across the country. A little over 1% identified as LGBT, which you see if you're going from 7 to 8% to 1%, again, we're not necessarily attracting LGBT people to emergency medicine, or if we are, they're not comfortable letting us know that they're there. So that's a little bit of a hidden thing, right? How do you know? And, somebody's sexual orientation, somebody's, that can be a very personal thing, whether they feel comfortable or not. But I think we as leaders and we as educators and we in academic emergency medicine can really show examples of how to make sure we're not doing very subtle things. Because when you're gay, you're very easy to learn how to pick up subtle cues. When you sit down with a prospective chair, boss, residency director, and you're a male, and they ask you about your wife, it's pretty unconscious bias, so to speak, to use those non-gender neutral pronouns and things like that. But when you ask those questions, when you don't see anybody like you, when you say, I want to get involved in diversity and inclusion, and that is a one path, and we heard a lot of great statistics from the speakers that came before me talking about that, but does anybody know if there's LGBT people in their group? Do you count and track them like you do your successes? Harsh spoke about some great success he's had in recruiting a diverse and inclusive group at Rutgers, and I'm sure he probably knows the answer to this question. I'm not putting him on the spot by any way, shape, or form. But nonetheless, that should be just as important to say, are we getting LGBT residents into our program because they feel comfortable? And so visibility is something that's really important. If your skin is darker, if you're female, it's pretty hard to hide those things. LGBT people have the ability at times to hide who they are, but when they hide it and they're not fully committed and not fully involved, I would advocate that they are not giving their full self to you, to their profession, to their colleagues, and why would you not someone not to do that? Why would you want, I have left jobs and positions because I felt like I didn't feel like I was welcome in who I am. And so I make a point of it, now that I'm a little further down the road, although maybe at my peril at some degree at some point in time, to be visible, to be out there, to be an example, to say that no matter what the political climate is, or no matter what is happening, I'm going to be who I am, and I want people to show that as an example to say that you can be who you are too. And I think that visibility portion is so incredibly important when you're looking to recruit a diverse and inclusive group, especially LGBT population. So, and with that, I'll pass on to the next.